All right, we're on. How's it going, Alex? We've already been chatting and you're in a great mood. How's your day going so far?
I'm in a great mood. It's been a great week. And I'm really excited about this show, more specifically because I get to be an expert.
Yeah, I've got my SME jumper on just to prove that I am an expert in some way.
Oh,
So
important.
Yeah, very important. I've got my qualifications on my shirt. But yeah. So today we are going to be doing some questions that all the lovely kind of audience members, people on LinkedIn, people we know, customers have been sending in to us, which is very exciting. So hopefully we won't get caught out with some of these questions, but we've had a little look through and we're going to be asking each other a bunch of questions. If you have any that you'd like to submit, drop them in the comments, let us know, and we'll be reading through any of those as well. So this is going to be like an interactive session. Before we get started, I wanted to shout out something that I did the other day, which was an episode on Cloudbusters, and I will link it here. So this is an episode talking about all things cloud, with some fellow kind of cloud financial management people, and they were so kind that they sent me this very lovely chef's hat, which I'll put there. So nice. With my baking. So for those of you who don't know, it's not important for cloud, but I like to do a lot of baking, and so they've created me that, which is very sweet.
Well, Steph, I got a question for you. You, as someone who has spoken at a lot of different things, been involved in pretty much like any organization possible, what has been your favorite swag?
Oh, that's such a good question. I wear my, I got a GitHub hoodie when I was at university doing a hackathon, and it's one of my favorite hoodies, and I've worn it to death, and it's just really comfortable. It's black and I just love it. So that's my favorite one. Sorry, it's not Amazon, but I've had it for a very long time. What about you?
Oh, I got socks once, and I actually really liked those. And then I also got a block for charge, like a charging block that like was carried a charge and also plugged into the wall, which was really
that's
nice.
Good. Yeah, the multi ones that you have all the different prongs on for are the best thing. I have them dotted all over, and I definitely gift them to people where I come back from conferences, and my friends are like, "What free stuff have you got?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I've got 7 chargers, so you can have them." So they like me for that. And we got Bryce in the comments also agrees. Pair of socks. It's a good way to go.
Socks, it's solid. You don't really think about it. I was trying to think if there's like any other really creative ones that I've gotten. I mean, any food I'm always going to be a fan of.
Oh yeah, but, food at conferences. Definitely. And stickers.
Stickers galore. Do you have 1 million stickers on your laptop?
Yeah, well, I used to, and now I'm like taking my time choosing them so that they are kind of what I want to have on there, rather than just dumping everything, because I still have like a bag of stickers from reInvent and summits and stuff all over the place.
Well, we definitely need to get keys to AWS optimization stickers. So you let us know in the comments if you would be interested in some.
Someone's already saying yes.
It's so weird that I haven't seen your laptop. So fun fact about me and Steph, I've never met Steph. I hired Steph almost a
10
year
months ago. Yeah. Longer. So over a year ago.
And I've never met her. It's so weird. I don't know how tall she is. She could be really short, and I have no idea.
Just sink down. Yeah, just on a booster. This chair's really high.
Okay.
All right. Shall we get into some of these questions?
We shall. I am going to find my. There we go. I got it. I'm ready with the questions. By the way, I'm impressed. At first, we had some slow movement, but we've gotten some cool questions in here.
Yeah, definitely gotten a lot. And there are some trends as well. So I went through and kind of sorted them out. So we have picked questions that are summarizing of several questions sometimes. So there were kind of common trends that we thought to group together. Do you wanna go first? Ask me a question. Put myself on first.
All right. All right, I'm going to pick this one. So AWS Instance Scheduler, how do you deal with users who need to log in ad hoc on times when the instance is off?
That's a good question. I realize I default say that. I realize I've chosen a technical one going in quite early. So Instance Scheduler, if people don't know, it's a solution that AWS made so that you can schedule when your instances get turned off and on. So this could be used for EC2, or it could be used for RDS, with the point that in the hours that you're not working, so a typical kind of 9 to 5 day, you want to have those servers on, especially in places like development, so people can use them. But at night, when people shouldn't be working, they should be having the night off and chilling, you don't need those servers, so why should you pay for them? And this is a common thing that people have been talking about in cost optimization for years, where it goes back to that concept of only using what you need, then you only pay for that. So that's great, but what if you said you don't actually fit the bill? So what if it's not being, you have these things that are ad hoc, so you don't need it on constantly or in a certain schedule, or you need to mix it up because people are at different time zones. So jumping in, one thing that I would suggest is using some kind of API gateway. I did this before with something similar with a Bastion. So we had a kind of Jumpbox Bastion in an account where we only needed to use it sometimes, but it didn't need to be on all the time. So what we do is we'd have an API call that you just go on the website and it would trigger off the Lambda to turn it on. And then that way you can kind of turn your instance on, you can use it and then leave it. And then you can let the scheduler turn it off when it's not needed. So you don't need a person to turn it off if they don't need to. And this is really good because the person that asked this question pointed out the fact that people might not have access to the console. So not everybody has access to your Amazon console, and nor should they. So making sure that you have that link accessible via your kind of company, that makes it a bit easier. That's what I would do.
Quick question, like add-on question to that. How long would you say it takes to set up an instance scheduler?
Oh, not long at all. Once you use the solution, I think I did it. It maybe took me like 15 minutes. It's not, it doesn't take, yeah, who can do it fastest? But because it's all set up in an Amazon solution and you just deploy it really quickly, and it has default parameters in there. So you can set it to a time zone very quickly, and then it will just work for that kind of generic thing. And what I'll do is I'll get the instance scheduler. I'll pull that link up and put it in the chat while Alex answers her question. So let's do this one. So kind of following on the EC2 area. So Alex, we had a whole episode about unit cost, which I'll also put in there. So what are your tips when someone has quite a high unit cost to kind of getting those numbers down?
Oof. Well, I guess it depends which kind of unit cost you're looking at. And my first tip automatically, when you think that a unit cost is high, are you looking at it at a granular level? If you're looking at a unit cost across all of the accounts in your organization, and you're a pretty decent sized organization, it's probably not granular enough to tell you much. So first thing I would say, like, get granular on it. And then second thing, before shifting everything up and down, would be, all right, who has a better unit cost? What are they doing? Because someone in your organization is already doing that. And then third thing, if we're talking about like compute, or let's say compute unit cost, is modernization. Go through, see first, obviously, like what's idle, but then what can I modernize and put on something newer, because that is going to be less expensive for the power, and it'll in return lower your unit cost.
I'm on mute. Easy kind. That's the first time that's happened. That's so annoying. No, that sounds great. All these kind of simple things. I like the comparison element, because we've had this conversation before where people have asked us kind of what is a good unit cost. And I don't know, it's kind of sticking your finger in the air, because it does depend on what else is going on. So having that benchmarking across your organization is really important to kind of set those standards. I'm just going to follow on. Someone asked a question in here. So this is a nice, easy kind of gentle one. So just curious, what made you interested in AWS?
You
Do you want me to go first?
Steph's answer is me. No.
I did care about Amazon before I met Alex, 100%.
And AWS, as like actually using it and being a user of AWS, what made me excited and interested in it was that it was kind of limitless. What can I do? And there wasn't a lot of, I wasn't worried a lot about, getting out of that free tier and testing things out and learning. Also, there's so many learning resources out there that was like, the world is my oyster. But what made me interested in working for AWS is truly the think big mentality here. Doesn't matter what level or what position you are, if you're an individual contributor, if you're a manager, if you manage managers, it doesn't matter. Your opportunity to think big and create and solve problems is the same across the board. And everyone is a really, truly open door. Now, at times that could be stressful and competitive, but you really get to find your strengths in those times and really get to dive into what you're excited about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first, Amazon in general for me, I actually didn't really have a choice in it. It was the first job I had there used Amazon, and we hadn't really heard of any other providers at that time. So we just went with that. And for me, the reason why I liked it so much was it was really easy to get started. Kind of like what Alex said, I was thrown in there to just go learn, try and build things. And I found the console itself like really easy to navigate, and the documentation out there was really good. So that's why I like it now. And the reason why I like working here is I think the culture of everybody wanting to help each other is really huge here. People will just message you out of the blue, or you can message people and kind of ask questions and stuff. And people always want to learn and share, which I think is great.
I like
all right.
It. True.
Do you want to go again?
Yeah. All right. I'll ask you one. So let me go out of order. Right. I'm going to do technical again, since I rather you answer those questions. How can I focus on optimizing costs for AWS Config?
That's good. So this came up recently in a customer engagement with a couple of peers, and Bill, who was on a few episodes ago about Kerr, had this conversation with me as well. So config is something that analyzes kind of changes in your environment and is really good for kind of monitoring things like security, or also areas like cost. But there is a cost associated to it, and I had never really thought about it until it was up on one of my customers' kind of high spending areas. So I won't go into masses of detail, but you are kind of, the way that you are charged is based on the number of changes that are recorded. And so there are these really great blog posts, and this is why I put this question in, because I wanted to highlight this, that I found, that I'll just link in the chat, that allow you to run a CloudFormation that will analyze what things are changing. So if there's something in your environment that is changing constantly that you're not aware of, that could be triggering loads of those change records, and that could be inflating your price. So again, it's understanding this data. The same thing I always go on about, and something I go on about in the Cloudbusters episode, is kind of making sure you have access to the data, and so that way you can understand where you're spending and kind of monitoring that. So that's why I won't go in. I'm not a config expert, but really recommend kind of taking a look at these blogs.
I actually need to dig into that. That is a blog post I have not read.
One of the few. I'm sure Alex has read loads of them.
I will say, when I was on maternity leave, I read the most random AWS blog post. I just felt like I needed to keep up on the lingo, and so I spent way too much time doing that.
Just deep dive into the world of blogs that people haven't read in years.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much.
So, well, I'll go back to our questions as well, but I like bringing in ones from the audience. So as someone dealing with an org that is very unconcerned with spending, how do you suggest raising awareness? And before Alex answers, this question came up about 5 times. So this is a great one. And so we'll cover this off now, and Alex can answer it.
Gamify it. Hands down, gamifying it. Make people want to care. People might not care about the dollars coming out of the bank, but they'll care about winning. And so when I have worked with organizations that they just in general just don't care, and maybe they're not in charge of their exact budget, or maybe it's just such a lofty budget item that there just isn't much detail in it. I kind of bring in that gamification side of it, and hey, this team is this efficient on this service. Can you do that? Or doing things like with spot instances, and really like showing those opportunities and giving people a chance to teach. That also like relays into people. Hopefully, most everyone wants to grow in their career, and so AWS and being proactive and competitive, and who can kind of build the best environment even within your organization, is a great way to give people an opportunity to speak, to teach the organization, to grow on those parts. But first and foremost is the competitive side of it, I think, is always a way to get people in the know.
Yeah, definitely. And we mentioned this in Shaun's episode, was that 2 weeks ago, which I'll drop a link to. And it's that being aware of making sure that people understand that just going in and deleting an instance isn't the best way of kind of saving money. It's kind of looking at that deep optimization. That's a nice one. So we've got some more coming in from the chat. Also, someone's pointed out they've never seen AWS Config before. So very happy that we've highlighted that to you for today. So are we working with any projects dealing with sustainable development? Alex, are you doing any? Have you seen any or worked with any customers around this?
Yes, so internal and external. So I don't know exactly what I can disclose, right? Because some of it's customer stuff, but it has been really, really cool to watch. So in general, I mean, AWS, Amazon in general has like a huge sustainability movement right now. And they just released, and it's on Amazon.com, kind of some of the new things that they're doing, you know, with like electric cars and stuff like that. But on our end, we are, you know, working to help customers track that. Like, what is their carbon footprint when they use AWS, right? Like, what is that? What's their impact to the environment? And I'd say that sometimes there's weeks that I get more questions on like how sustainable is my environment on AWS versus how much does it cost? Because in a lot of organizations right now, that's a bigger win. And it's really fun to look it through. But basically, the first step that I see people working on is kind of calculating that footprint of what you're doing, and what can we use that's, you know, serverless, and what can we use that doesn't have that footprint.
That's great. I mean, when you think about saving money, it doesn't maybe necessarily, people don't think of the fact that it's being more sustainable. But if you're not using something, it's not using any energy. So if you break it down to that really simple factor, that's awesome. I would love for, if any of my customers watching want to chat about sustainability, let me know. And I've also popped in a public sector blog that Amazon have done in the chat. So if anybody wants to hear more about how Amazon is kind of going down the sustainable route, then feel free to check that out. So we've got one more question from the chat that I'll throw in. So if anyone's joined us kind of midway, we're doing the Ask the Experts, Ask Me and Alex about cost optimization. So if you have any burning questions you would like to send us, feel free to drop them in the chat. So question, I stopped my EC2 instance but received a budget alarm weeks later stating that I was at 85% of my EBS. Will EBS continue through even though an instance is stopped? So I'm just going to say yes, that's right. I was confirmed to Alex. She's more of the expert. So I believe that the cost will keep going even if the instance is stopped.
Yes, I believe that is can be a little bit of a tricky. Also, you looking at unattached EBS, like that's usually a place where you can find some cost savings. Figuring out where that lines up. That's like one of the first steps of cleanup that we would do, I think, for a customer. Yeah,
and you can see this if you use something like Trusted Advisor, then that will identify low utilized EBS volumes. So you can go and check that on your console, just search Trusted Advisor, and it will especially highlight kind of unattached volumes, but also those ones that aren't being utilized. And those are often ones that are attached to an instance that are stopped. So you can always try, if you're not using that volume, to lower to a cheaper type of volume type. That might be a way of doing it if you know you want to stop it for a while. But if you keep going on and off, then you might as well leave it as it is. But yes, that will keep incurring costs. Right, where are we up to? I think I'm going to read one of Alex's questions out to her, even though you've done a lot of these. Okay, so what visibility options do I have outside of Cost Explorer?
Oof, so many. And that's a good thing. I want to preface, sometimes I think there's like a negative connotation to all these different ways you can look at your cost and usage. Personally, I think that it's a great thing because everybody's different. Everybody learns different. Everybody drives results different. We want to make sure that you have options no matter what your goals are. So Cost Explorer being kind of that first one and out of the box one. But of course, we have the Kudos framework, which Steph can share in here. We did some talks on that, and we've gotten some requests to dive in a little bit further with the Kudos framework. But that builds off of the Cost Intelligence Dashboard, which is a great way to be a little bit more hands-on viewing your costs. We've got great partners out there that have tooling and things that you can sign on for to help see those costs. We've had people take similar logic of that Kudos workshop and put it into Power BI or Tableau. We have people that are obsessed with Excel sheets and just run queries off of Steph's SQL Query Lab. Throw that one in too. and make their own in Excel or make that a little bit easier. So I think the opportunities are endless. I think some people get frustrated by that, but I, on the contrary, think that it's a good way to dive in. Also, I believe we're having, or I could be speaking, where we're going to talk a little bit about some of those options.
Yes, yeah.
And then
So
a future.
yes, so next week we're having Bryce back on, who did our ECS episode. Check us out on YouTube, where you can see all of the all of the past episodes. And he's kind of looking at, we've mentioned a couple of different ways to show costs, but there are loads of ways to save money in Amazon as well. So things like Compute Optimizer, Trusted Advisor, one was already mentioned. And so when should you use these different tools, and what are they the best for? So he's going to come on next week and chat a bit about that, which I'm really looking forward to, because I'm interested to see kind of where I have my thoughts about it. So I'm interested to see what his area is going to be. All right.
All right. Can I ask you a question now?
Yes.
Am I good? You up? All right.
Yeah.
So I love this question. I know that I have several cost optimization areas to focus on, but I don't have enough time/help to act on all of them. So where do you start? What are their options?
This is like not trying to, what is it? Drain the ocean. Is that the phrase? I think I was just to say that.
I don't know. We need to ask Bryce. Bryce, give us. I know you're in the chat.
Give us a phrase. So the thing I would say, if you've got boil the ocean, that's it. I've remembered. Sorry. Boil the ocean. Sorry, that was a tangent. So. But boil the ocean, what I mean is, yeah, you have too many options. So you have all these ways in which you've run kind of Trusted Advisor or Compute Optimizer or any of these tools, or you've looked on the Kudos kind of dashboard, and you see all these different ways to save money, and you're just overwhelmed. Thanks, Rob, who's also commented boil the ocean. You don't know where to start, and that's very daunting. I've definitely had that before, and I think the ways in which you start looking at it is there's a couple of different ways you can take. So what do you have control over? So when I was running FinOps at KPMG, one of the things was there was lots of savings in all these different mini projects accounts that I didn't really have control over. But what I did notice was this CloudTrail spend that was really, really high. And it was because people have been turning CloudTrail on, having multiple trails, costing money. And what I could do is go in and stop those because they weren't using them. And I could just check that was all right. I could do that, and then I could save money. So first of all, I see what I can do. And then when you need to think bigger, you need to make a target. So where are you going to make the most impact, and how is that then going to lead to you being able to do more? So if you take on a big project that's really keen to save money, so maybe internally you have a business unit and they know they've got to hit a budget, you speak to them and you kind of get them to work with you. And then you're going to build that trust, and then you're going to save money. And then you can go to the rest of the business and say, hey, I did this great work with this unit. Does anybody else want to know? And then you've kind of already got this reference saying, I've done this before. And then the third thing I think is really important is make things reusable. So I obviously always bring up using code. That's my go-to concept coming from a developer background. But it's really important because you don't want to do that work over and over again. So things like, I always bring up my example of Elastic IPs. You don't want to have to manually go through hundreds of accounts to delete Elastic IPs that are unattached that you don't need. So you might as well use a script that can go through and do that repetitive task for you. So think about how you build it for yourself in kind of one project, but how can you make it reusable? So those are my three kind of top areas that I would do.
It's a good one.
All right.
I like that. You need a blog post on that.
Yeah, I'll get on it. I might need blog post. Okay. All right. This is the one Alex wants to do this one. What are the top 2 to 3 surprises that customers encounter as their cloud spend grows?
I also I want to get your perspective on this too, Steph, but I would say top 3. Number 1 is that they didn't tag, or they don't know what's coming from where. So usually the second that they get that, I'm gonna stay away from bad words. Oh shoot moment. They realize like, oh, none of these resources are labeled. They're not tagged. We didn't even name the accounts a certain way. Like, how do I know what this is? Number 2, I think, is that they are using too big of EC2. I would say 9 times out of 10, especially if I'm talking to a smaller company that's just starting to hit that growth, we take a look and realize that they're not utilizing, like, their max CPU is under 10 for an entire month for those instances. And then number 3 would be, number 3, I think, would be all their storage is in the same tier. So they get that ocean coming from, then they realize that they're using too big of what they need. And then they also realize that there's ways to make things less expensive on the storage side, because I think those oh shoot moments happen in the compute and storage world probably most.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I've got to try and think of 3 others after the kind of top ones. So surprises. So I think kind of going off the tagging element, people aren't looking at their data. So I know definitely before when I was a customer, no one was really checking the bill. I do have a really distinct memory of my old director having a printed copy of the invoice on a desk. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he's like, it's the Amazon bill. And he just like kind of didn't care about it. And I was like, whoa, this is how much we spent. I had no idea. And that kind of got me into the world of actually looking at the bill. But yeah, people aren't really aware of what they're spending it. So using things like the Kudos dashboard or the Cost Intelligence dashboard, or even just Cost Explorer, are really good ways in which people can kind of take ownership and see stuff of their bill. Another small thing, kind of going back to that config stuff, it's people when they do calculations of how much it costs to go onto the cloud, they think I've got an EC2, I've got a database, and I've got storage. You've got the really simple, like this is what I need, but they forget about all those extra bits, and it's things like data transfer or config or shield, and like an EBS volume. They're not looking at their storage for the actual EBS underneath, and it's taking a look at your full infrastructure and kind of working out how you can look into that. One thing I found recently, and I wonder if I can find it now, was a link about how you can upload your cloud formation to give you an estimate of what your bill is going to be. And that's like I want to share that. That's quite a good idea to kind of do that before you get started. Or if you're worried about spending, like how you can kind of look into that. So I think that's quite an interesting concept to go down. But yeah. They're my 2. I'm not going for 3. I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
It's all right. All right. 2 to 3. All right. Should we tackle this joint one? I think that we both probably have quick answers for this as our wrap up.
Yeah, brilliant.
So the question is, you guys are talking to executives all the time about CFM. What are good analogies, metaphors, and stories that you use to drive the need for CFM home?
Do you want to go first or should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a really dumb analogy that I used to use. I used to do the conference circuit. So apologies if anyone's heard it before, but it's about phone bills. So I'm going back to the idea that people don't care about cost if they can't see it. So in the UK, at least, we have work phones. I think in America, sometimes this is quite niche to have, but in the UK, we definitely have work phones. And my work phone, like, I don't look at the bill. I don't even know where the bill is. I don't have access to it. I don't really look at the data I use. I'll use it all the time. I might stream on it. If I'm on the train, I might watch something on a telly show on that. But my personal phone, I will be really careful about that. Like, I'm not going to be watching TikTok in general public because I can't be using up all that data, because I see the bill and I care about how much money I spend on it. And I like to equate the cloud to that concept. Whereas if you don't show the developers or the managers how much they're spending, how are they supposed to care about it? So that's my really cheesy analogy.
I made a face because that's mine. I do the phone bill.
No, do you? Who stole it from who, Alex?
In general, though, because I get really excited when people are at some of that starting point, right? And when an executive starts to care about cloud financial management, it's really fun to walk in and talk about it. And if it's an executive that's more on the technical side, it's easy to, sell, like, look how excited people are to use these resources, to be able to build new things, build new solutions. Like, let's make sure that there's someone in your organization that's showing them that all these new ways to build things, all these new things to try out are going to save them money, right? And make sure that they can look back at that. But if it's on the financial side, I show them that if they had the concentration there, that they would be able to tell owners of the company, hey, we're saving this much, or like, we are this efficient. And that, I think, is huge, like being able to equate that to like top of a company.
Brilliant. Okay, if you want to reach out, please feel free to email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. Thank you for all the questions that were submitted. If you have any more that you want to ask, send it in. And as I mentioned, next week we are having Bryce back on to come and chat about all those different solutions on Amazon that can help you save money straight off that are already in your account. See you all next week.